Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Hayley Rose-Hajjar, and I'm joining you today as an international development practitioner who has worked for about the past decade on programs that were seeking to strengthen justice systems, rights protection, civil society, and ultimately the rule of law and democratic governance in countries around the globe. And I come to this work as a non-lawyer, but have had the luck and opportunity to work with colleagues and partners in countries all over the world, from Africa and the Middle East to Central Asia and Eastern Europe, on these programs that we're seeking to strengthen the rule of law. And I am joined today by Mark Dietrich, who is one of the founders and the chair of the board of the Alliance for American Rule of Law, or AAROL. Thank you, Mark, for joining me.
Thanks, Haley. Great to be here with you.
So we're here today to talk about the Alliance for American Rule of Law. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Alliance for American Rule of Law and why you started it?
Sure. Thank you again for making the time to talk. AAROL, the Alliance for American Rule of Law, is a new not-for-profit organization, the mission of which is to leverage the expertise of those of us who have worked on promoting the rule of law overseas to speak out in support of the rule of law in the United States, which we now see as being under threat here. As to why we started it, it really goes back to the fact that I and a number of my colleagues who also helped to start this initiative have spent our careers working, as you have, working to promote the rule of law overseas in a variety of countries, including places like the country of Georgia, Uzbekistan, Albania, Romania, as well as in Ecuador and Sri Lanka and other countries in Africa and Asia. We felt that as we saw some of the threats and the deterioration of the rule of law in this country, that we would have a different perspective to bring on what we see happening here, and that if we could leverage our experience and the experience of some of our colleagues with whom we've worked in these other countries, who've also had to deal with creeping authoritarianism, that would bring a different or a unique voice to what is happening in this country.
And when you say the rule of law, what do you mean by that?
Well, there are any number of definitions about what is the rule of law out there. To my mind, it has at least two key aspects. One is it defines the relations between citizens and their governments and delineates the powers of the state over their citizens, and also provides the citizens with certain rights. A second key part of the rule of law to me is that it should be applied equally to everybody and to serve to protect everybody. And this gets to one of, I guess, AAROL's key values, which is based in the concept that the rule of law should protect us all, that it is not a political issue. We are seeking to convey our concerns about the rule of law in a nonpartisan way, in an inclusive way, and in a collaborative way. So our goal really is to promote the constitutional and traditional legal values that go to the heart of the American legal system. And this includes protecting the independence of our judiciary, protecting our constitutional right to freedom of speech, ensuring equality before the law, making sure that laws and judicial decisions are clear and that you're able to understand and follow them, accountability for public corruption, and ensuring the right to counsel. Those are some of the core values of the American legal system that we want to make sure are protected. And again, our core values are to be inclusive and non-political.
So, Mark, you and many others in this community, we've worked overseas. Some of us have lived overseas in countries where the rule of law was lacking, weak, absent. Can you tell me a little bit more about what your experience was like in those contexts?
Sure. My first job in international rule of law development was in Romania when I went there in 1993 as the representative of the American Bar Association's Central and East European Law Initiative. The country at that time was still recovering from 50 years of communist rule and from the dictatorship of Nicolae Ceausescu, who had been executed along with his wife following a summary trial on Christmas Day of 1989. The Ceausescus had sought to establish really a Maoist-style personality cult around themselves, which entailed constructing massive buildings that they would name after themselves, making their learned writings required reading for all citizens, and allowing external travel only for the elite and well-connected. At that time, I found myself living in an economy that provided very little choices. If I wanted to have chicken for dinner, for example, I would have to spend the whole day going from store to store to find chicken. In terms of the justice sector, citizens, lawyers, and judges all reported that it had been a broken, corrupt system. The perception, and it was a lingering perception even then, was that in order to win a case, you had to find a lawyer who would be able to have access to and pay a bribe to the judge, and the case would be won by the person who had the highest bid. In cases of administrative disputes with the state or in politically important cases, my counterparts at that time openly described the concept of telephone justice, whereby political leadership called the judge to instruct him or her on how to decide a case. And the failure to comply with the directive could have serious consequences for the judge, including the judge being assigned to a remote court, failure to qualify for advancement, or even removal from office. Also at that time, petty corruption was rampant, especially amongst traffic police who demanded bribes instead of issuing tickets. And overall, it was a society that had largely fallen apart and was trying to reconstruct itself. I went on to work in other countries, mostly through an over 20-year career with the East-West Management Institute. And we were working in countries like Albania, Sri Lanka, Liberia, Georgia. And I continued to see these patterns of corruption and state control over the courts and the bar, as well as trying to take over the economy. And this is what we were fighting against. This is the struggle that we were engaged in. All of this work, I might add, was done with the bipartisan support of Congress, which allocated funds to the United States Agency for International Development and to the State Department to support our programs and our efforts. All of that work, as you know, ended abruptly about a year or so ago, and we're still trying to figure out our way out of that, but that's another story.
Maybe a story for another time. You raise a lot of issues, a lot of different types of threats to the rule of law that you saw when you were working abroad. And I know that, my colleagues here in the U.S. and our community and colleagues abroad have a variety of concerns related to that when they look at the U.S. right now. What rises to the top of your mind when you're looking at the rule of law in the U.S., you're concerned about some things? What are some of those top concerns?
Yeah, I have many concerns. And again, having worked and lived in countries where the regimes are autocratic and where there is a lack of the rule of law, I see what's happening here as a creeping assault on the American tradition of rule of law. What I'm seeing are, of course, these rhetorical attacks on judges and politicians calling for the impeachment of judges just for the decisions that they have made, not for any improper conduct on the part of the judges, but the politicians disagree with for political reasons, for the decisions that the judges have made. And this is wrong, no matter what your political bent is. The proper course, as Chief Justice Roberts pointed out in his report on the state of the judiciary last year, is to appeal the decision that you disagree with. Otherwise, we're just going to be eroding judicial independence. The courts will become simply another almost quasi-electoral branch, whereas the judiciary, an independent judiciary, should really serve to protect minority rights and opinions and serve as a counterweight to the other two branches of power. At least that's what I believe that our founders intended. A second major concern for me is the physical attacks on judges, not just rhetorical attacks, either for political reasons or because lawyers or litigants are disgruntled by their decisions. A few years ago, an assassin murdered the adult son of a federal judge in New Jersey, Judge Salas, when he had opened the door to their home to someone posing as a pizza deliveryman. Now judges all across the country are being pizza doxed, with pizzas being phoned in and delivered to their homes in the name of Judge Salas's dead son. To let the judges know very specifically that the people calling these in know where the judges live, and it's a really undisguised threat and totally unacceptable to an independent judiciary, and it's hurting the morale of the judiciary, and it's going to be hard to attract good, strong, ethical judges to that role if they know that they are under threat. A third issue I would mention is the failure of the administration to comply with or delay or avoid complying with judicial orders, and there are many examples of that coming out of the recent judicial orders in Minnesota. Mm. A fourth concern, which maybe is a little bit more academic, but it's also important, is the overuse of the Supreme Court's emergency or shadow document, pursuant to which it is issuing important, far-reaching, even if supposedly temporary decisions, without full argument, without full written decisions, and leaving the lower courts and the public to guess what the highest court in the land is thinking. This type of opacity is destined to undermine public trust and confidence in the Supreme Court and in our lower courts, and that's something that we're seeing in the polling numbers. A fifth concern I would mention is the administration has been forcing large law firms to take on a pro bono basis certain cases and causes that the administration wants them to take on. Again, this undermines the independence of our lawyers and of our justice system overall. A final concern that I will mention now, and I'm sure as you mentioned, Hayley, other lawyers can come up with other examples, is that citizens and lawful residents are being swept up off the streets of America and detained. Not surprisingly, this has now led to the unjustifiable use of lethal force, as we've seen with the cases of Renee Good and Alex Preddy in Minneapolis, who were apparently simply exercising their First Amendment rights to protest. And their killings represents a horrifying step towards us becoming a non-rule of law state. I certainly hope that there will be a full, complete, transparent, fair investigation into those killings and that there will be accountability as the law requires.
These issues are heavy. These threats are continued and heavy. And, we can only do what we can in the face of it. I'm curious, what is AAROL doing in the face of this? What is the goal of the founding of this organization with this in mind?
Well, there are a lot of needs. AAROL's focus is on awareness, raising awareness, and public advocacy and education. There are other groups, and on AAROL's website, we've done a mapping of them that are engaged in other activities such as strategic litigation or representing those who have been arrested and need representation, or engaging in specific policy advocacy. That's not what AAROL is doing. We are seeking to raise awareness of these issues and of the concerns, and we want to make the rule of law in America an issue for people to be aware of and to speak out in defense of. So we're doing a number of things. We have a series of interviews that have been posted on our YouTube channel with experts, rule of law experts, both from the United States and overseas, who are describing their experiences and their work and their concerns of what they're seeing. We are supporting a written advocacy, written educational pieces, I should say. We have a blog where a number of our supporters have posted commentaries and brief articles about the concerns that they are seeing, and some of those have also been published in the mainstream press, which we're very pleased by. And then we're also engaging in public speaking at in-person events and online as well, where we are, again, our supporters, our members, some of my fellow board members have been very active and articulate in describing both the work that they have done overseas and in raising the concerns that they see about what is happening in the United States. So those are some of the things that we are doing, and we're going to continue to be doing until the rule of law is safely ensconced again in the United States.
One day. If someone out there watching wants to take their first steps towards supporting the rule of law, speaking up for the rule of law, where would you recommend that they start?
So take a look at our website, AAROL.org, AAROL.org. You can sign up to receive our blogs. You can sign up to become more actively engaged. You can write a blog post for us. You may even be interested in being interviewed for one of our video pieces. You can speak out to your local bar and civic groups, and on our website we also have some guidelines for how we think that is best accomplished. But the main goal, I think, the main goal of AAROL is to encourage other people to speak out, and for us to help them to speak out and to give them the tools to speak out. As I mentioned, we're a not-for-profit organization. All of our efforts to date have been very much grassroots, but we do need financial support as well. And we will be, on our website, we will be also posting ways that you can make contributions to support our work.
So what I'm hearing is that AAROL is there to connect with and support and amplify people who want to speak up for the rule of law in whatever their corner of the United States, including lawyers and non-lawyers like myself, and to be there as a partner and support those messages getting out, which is excellent. I wonder if you have any parting words that you'd like to leave before we close this conversation.
No, I think you've summarized kind of AAROL's goals very nicely. I guess I would just reiterate that that the rule of law is not a political issue, and that the rule of law and an independent judiciary should protect us all. And that's a core American value, and that is what has contributed to making America the success that it has been for the last 250 years. But the challenge is now, there are real assaults on the rule of law right now, and we all need to speak out in defense of the rule of law. We need to vote for candidates who believe in the rule of law and who will follow the rule of law. And I think if we all work together, individuals and other organizations who share our values and our goals, we can succeed in protecting the rule of law in the United States.
Very well said. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for all of that insight that you shared, and also for all of your efforts to work on and build this alliance for the American rule of law. I want to thank as well everyone who has joined us today. If any of what we've talked about has resonated with you, I encourage you to reach out and start to get connected with the Alliance for American Rule of Law. You can do that by visiting the AAROL website at AAROL.org. We also have a great YouTube channel where you can subscribe to see further interviews and insights from rule of law experts from all over the world. And you can find us on Instagram and LinkedIn for the time being, or also connect with us over email. Thank you so much.